Welcome, AFC Ann Arbor fans, to the first ever edition of Welcome to Treetown. I'm your host, Ryan McCooch, and I'm thrilled to be presenting this podcast to you. It's going to be weekly throughout the season and in the weeks leading up to the season with interviews of all your favorite members of the AFC Ann Arbor family. I'm joined with our first ever guest by Eric Rudland, head coach of the AFC men's team. Eric, how are you?
I'm doing well. Excited to be on the first ever podcast here. So, thanks for putting it together and appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Thanks for coming out. So one of the main things surrounding AFC this season is this is the fifth year of competition, and you've been with the team since its beginning in the NPSL. What changes have you noticed within the club from then till now?
I mean, every year it's kind of a gradual change, I think. We look at each season when we've just completed it and say, okay, what can we do different? What can we do better next year? So, when you look at it from maybe year to year, there aren't a ton of changes. But I think when you look back to our first year, my first year with the club, which would have been 2015, I think there have been a ton of positive changes, since then. And obviously, I think a lot about the football side of the club, but also thinking about, our fan base and our reach in the community and just how we've grown as an organization has been pretty spectacular. Specifically on the football side, I think our staff is pretty solidified now. We've got guys who have been with the club for more than one season, which I think is a big step in creating a foundation and just a way that we go about our daily business. We have players who have been with us for 3 seasons now. So again, that helps with that cohesion from year to year. We, from a training standpoint, where we train and how often we train and the time of day that we've trained, that's all changed since the first season, but I think it's gotten better, each year. Last year we were able to implement GPS tracking devices. So all of our guys were with sensors and training in matches. So from a sports science standpoint, we took a big step forward and we hope to build off that again this next season. So I think we always want to be on the front foot, try to improve, and try to take the club to the next level. And I think in a lot of ways we've been kind of at the front of leading some changes, that other clubs have tried to adopt in the league as well. And for us to stay competitive, hopefully we can keep pushing that envelope.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, one of the things that's very important as well, not just the player training, is coaches' preparation for the season as well. Is there anything that's particularly difficult for you in terms of getting ready for the season? I know the NPSL can be a bit difficult to see which teams are coming in, which teams are going. We've seen a couple expansion teams already. Is there anything that can hinder your preparation for the season, or is it usually just business as usual?
There are a lot of things that can, hinder, our preparation, but there's kind of different phases or different waves to the off season. Obviously, at our level, you've got a 3 to 4 month season, which makes for a very long off season. So, we spent a lot of time this past fall scouting college players, getting to college matches, trying to make sure that we had a really solid database of players that we could start to recruit for our upcoming season. And so we always fight some recruiting battles between us and other clubs. We go through the player vetting process with players, and maybe we put a lot of time into a player and they decide to go play elsewhere, or maybe we're working on an international player and their visa doesn't come through on the last minute. There are some headaches, definitely, some hoops you have to jump through. But at the end of the day, it's just keeping the big picture in mind that, if maybe a player doesn't work out, we're going to move on to the next player. And so we just try to control what we can control in that team building process. When it comes to fluctuation in the league, whether it be a club coming or going or anything like that, again, it impacts our schedule maybe, of where we have to travel and who we have to play. But I don't think it's anything that compromises, what we're about. We're trying to obviously just focus on ourselves, make sure that, everything's lined up from a training standpoint, where we're going to play our home matches, and then obviously getting the right players in, is the big piece. So, it's like I said, there's waves, and right now we're in that wave of trying to get the team locked in, and come April, we'll be in the wave of preseason, which is, when things start really getting fun, you can get out on the field and start building up the team.
Do you have a favorite part of preseason every year?
Favorite part of preseason? I think it's all good for different reasons. Our preseason's a little bit unique. At the next level, maybe if you're with a USL club or definitely an MLS club, you start preseason and most of your guys are there, which is makes preseason a special time to not only build up the team technically and tactically, but you can also really build the culture of your group and make sure that guys are clicking and you're working on some of the camaraderie and culture. For us, it's different. We might start preseason with 6 or 7 players, and then we're waiting for this guy to come in or that guy to get in from whatever school or his final exams he's finishing up. So, it's great to lay the foundation early on when we'll start that second week of April. And then I think there's exciting moments as we're introducing players into the group throughout the month of April. And obviously, preseason is all about being prepared for the first game. So I think that's kind of the culmination of preseason is seeing how we react and respond in our first league match.
We are in the start of February. It's sort of the calm before the storm. Is it that way for you, or is there things still going on left and right in preparation for the season?
It's a different type of busy. Right now it's watching a lot of videos of players. We try to take the next step to watch full-length matches of the players we're bringing in. A lot of guys will send highlight clips or, some people might just work off player recommendations. But we do those things, but we also take the next step to watch a full match of a player we're going to bring in as well. So there's a lot of watching videos right now, a lot of phone calls with college coaches, players, agents, who are representing players to try to, pick their brain, figure out what makes those players click and how they might fit into our system. And then, the scheduling aspects of sorting out our league schedule and, our training schedule and lining up some sports science and interns and whatnot who will help on the sporting side of the club. So we're not on the field. It's not that daily grind of being at training every morning. But there is definitely a grind right now when it comes to kind of the administrative and football side of putting the team together.
Talk to me a bit about that sort of administrative grind where you mentioned things like scheduling and sort of working out personnel sort of things. Is that something that you have a ton of say in, or is that something that you kind of just have to go with the flow?
I mean, when it comes to building the team, that's one thing that I'm very blessed with here with AFC Ann Arbor is the ownership group, and Bilal is our chairman. Give me a lot of autonomy when it comes to putting the team together. So I work closely with our staff of coaches to make sure that the guys we're bringing in are the right guys, and obviously each of our coaches on staff have a different reach or a different network to recruit players and identify players. So that's kind of an all hands on deck type process. And, the board wants to be updated, obviously, and kind of know where we are, and which is completely natural. And it's great to have their support and their eagerness to know who we've brought in and who we've got committed, specifically when it comes to returning players. When it comes to scheduling and things of that nature, I don't have as much say, but obviously, again, Bilal or Jamie, one of our other owners who works pretty heavily with the league, with scheduling matches and whatnot, they'll run things past me. They'll ask for feedback, which I greatly appreciate because I think we've built ourselves and our culture and the way we go about our business to try to make decisions that make the most sense from a football standpoint. So, hey, some clubs might say, all right, let's schedule 3 games in a week or 4 games in 10 days. It's like, no, we can't really do that. We want to maximize individual players' performance and put ourselves in a position to compete and be successful. And so, they'll run things past me and get my input. And, that's where I'm always approaching those questions from is what's best for the team and what's going to position ourselves to be successful.
You mentioned in terms of returning people, you have a lot of your staff that's sort of already laid out. Rod is back, Jeff Shuck is back as the goalkeeping coach, and Boise is back. Can you talk a little bit about them and how important they are to the whole setup of AFC?
Yeah, I mean it's like we talked about. It's a daily process of being on the field with players, and I think it's very important that one, it's a staff that has mutual respect and trust for one another, and I think we all have that. We've worked with each other in different projects, and those guys, it's like when you walk into battle, you want guys that are going to have your back and have the best interest of the club in mind, and those guys definitely do. So we're very fortunate to have them coming back. And when you look at each staff member, they have a unique a very unique approach to the game and perspective, which is seen through their lens of the various experiences they've had in the game. So, you know, you look at a guy like Boise who grew up playing in South Africa and came to the States and has played at the highest level in the MLS. Like he sees things through his own lens. You know, Rod, who has a lot of experience in the States, but has, you know, been around pro clubs in Albania. You know, he has a perspective that brings you know, a unique view from upper management in a big European club, which, you know, there isn't really a price tag that you can put on that. And then Jeff obviously is, you know, one of the top goalkeeper specialists, not only in Michigan, but probably in the region. So to have his expertise, I think, is fantastic. And the first year we had Jeff with us, he worked with TJ Tomaso, who set clean sheet records at the club.
Yes.
Last year, Mike Novotny, who set clean sheet records at the club, and then has recently signed with Hartford Athletic in the USL. So there's a certain level of expertise, you know, that he brings to the club, which I think positions ourselves really well when it comes to, you know, recruiting top level goalkeepers and helping them push on. And then my dad, you know, didn't mention him, but obviously he's been with us. He's been with me in Lansing 2 years, and then the 3 years here in Ann Arbor, same as Boise. And, you know, he's got valuable insight and perspective just based on his years of experience in the game, and is a great guy to have around just to observe and to whisper in players' ears. And I think that's really what you're looking for is you want to put a staff together that can connect with the players. And I'm not naive to think that as the manager, I'm going to be able to connect with every player on the team. I'm not going to be. So to have players, you know, who you know, to have staff who players can maybe lean on a little bit differently to build those relationships and connect is really important.
Absolutely. 100% in terms of building those relationships. Is there any particular memory that you've had in the past season where maybe not even a game, but something in training where it's something that you remember on with fondness?
Yeah, I'll share this one experience. I'm trying to remember whose birthday it was. But we have something that Rodrigo, our performance coach, helped us implement 2 years ago. It was a special moment, whether it's a player's birthday or maybe a new player in who just had a big-time match for us, or somebody's last day, maybe they had to leave early for their college preseason or whatever. We have this special little line that the guys get in, and I won't say it out loud, but we do something neat that I think the players remember. And so at the end of training this past year, and I'm blanking on whose actually birthday was. Maybe it was Turnbull's or somebody's. We set everything up. Tito's, that's who it was. Yeah, the goalkeeper, Tito the goalkeeper. That's right. So I tell the guys, you know, hey, everybody on the line, and the guys are like, oh man, training's over with. And Rod, one of our assistant coaches who was new last year, I'd never seen it before, and he's like, oh, like really, you're gonna run these guys right now? Like end of training, long week. So, you know, guys, get in pairs, you know, get on the line now, and guys are scrambling to get there, right? And then we set the whole thing up. We got Tito at the end of the line, and he went all the way through. And I think it was a pretty epic moment, something that we made special here with our club. And obviously Rodrigo from Brazil was the one who shared that kind of unique, let's call it, activity with us. So hopefully we can keep that tradition going this year.
Very fun, very fun. Talking a bit about players, you mentioned Mike Novotny. He signed with Hartford. Sergio Campbell, just recently, it was announced by Hartford that he signed on with them. Stanley Okumu already with the Real Monarchs. Can you talk a bit about the professional players and what it's like being a part of their journey, a very important part of their journey?
I always tell the guys, you know, and this is, you know, something we share at our end of season banquet every year is, you know, when you look back on AFC Ann Arbor, we want this to be a memorable stop in your journey. You know, we all understand that, hey, some of these guys have been playing since they're 5, 6 years old, and some of them are going to play till they're 35, 36 years old. You know, so when you look at that, for some 30-year journey, you know, AFC Ann Arbor is 3 months of that, or maybe 9 months of that if they've played for us for more than, you know, 1 or 2 seasons. So, you know, we understand where we are and kind of our mark that we can leave on a player. So, you know, we always want them to look back and say, you know, my time with AFC Ann Arbor was special for this reason. You know, fill in the blank, right? Because each player is going to respond to that question a little bit differently. You know, some guys have been with us and they haven't made it on to the next level. You know, but we still want them to look back and say, hey, my time with AFC Ann Arbor was special for this reason. You know, I think you know, a guy like Stanley Okumu, who's, captain the Kenyan U23s. He's in with the full men's national team now. He's a player that I think the Real Monarchs believe could break in to Real Salt Lake's first team this year. And for a guy like that to be WhatsApping us, every week or every other week to say, hey, coach, how's it going? How's the team looking? Is pretty remarkable when you think about it in the big picture. So I think there's a special bond, hopefully a small place in the player's mind and heart of their time here with AFC Ann Arbor. And to be fair, that's really what's cool about our layer of football is, we can have kind of a special print on a player that bond will stay there as they move forward in their career. So to be able to track guys like, Lars Eckenrode, who was with the club before I was with the club, and so many players that have pushed through now to the next level. It's something pretty unique.
How regularly do you keep in contact with some of those guys?
I try to as much as possible, probably not as much as I should. But like, for instance, some guys like Lars, I probably speak to his agent more than I speak to him, but I'm getting updates kind of on how he's progressing and where he's going in his career. Whenever guys are back in town, I like to try to connect with them. So I saw Lars when he was back for a Michigan game this past fall. And the other guys, it's oftentimes it's not about speaking frequently, but trying to check in with them at the right moment. So, they break in, they have a debut, or they get a big result, or maybe things don't go their way. Trying to just keep tabs on when might be a good time to check back in with them, because, we still view ourselves as part of their support system, whether we're giving them praise or trying to give them encouragement.
Gearing a little bit away towards the football talk, what have you been up to for this off season? Is there anything that you've been fun up to, or?
Good question. Non-football.
Non-football.
Right, now you're really stumping me here.
I know, throwing you for a loop.
Yeah, around the holidays, my family typically takes a vacation with my extended family on my side. We went up to Boyne for a couple of days of skiing and snowboarding. My daughter, who just turned 4, did pretty good going down the hill. A couple face plants, but it was
it's a learning process.
Yeah, and it's pretty fun to look back on those videos as well. I went down to the MLS Combine for 3 days in Orlando, which was a football trip, obviously, but really cool networking and tracking some players. Hopefully, we can get a couple players, for the Mighty Oak this season that were at the Combine. And then I was down in Chicago for the coaches convention in mid-January, which is another cool stop. Aside from that, I work with the Rush Youth Soccer Club here in Michigan, so we've been busy coaching. Soccer never sleeps, as we like to say. Coaching is coaching, no matter what level you're at. Spend time with the family, during the downtime. My wife, and we have 2 daughters, so, whenever we can catch, whether it be a trip downtown Ann Arbor or a quiet night in Dexter where we live, that's get as many of those in right now and store them in the bank, because we all know once April hits, it's not going to happen very often.
Get them in while you can.
Yeah.
When you're talking about going down to the MLS Combine, you also run the Midwest Pro Soccer Combine. What do you look for in terms of players, not just for the Combines, obviously, but also for the Mighty Oak?
Yeah, we use an acronym, which actually Boise shared with us through some of his scouting he's done, which we call TIPS, which is technique, insight, personality, and speed. So essentially, when we're watching a player, we view them in each of those categories, let's call them. And then we have very specific player profiles that we have in place for each position. So we look at the attributes that we want for each position player that will fit into our system and our style of play. So there's kind of two elements, an individual player assessment, and then an assessment of how that player would fit into our system. And we keep a pretty in-depth database on the players that we've seen. Oftentimes, it'll be players that are recommended that are dropped into our database. So going down to the Combine in Florida and then the Midwest Combine here in Michigan, it's about taking really good notes on players, because at the end of the day, you never really know who's going to fall in your lap. Right. So just this past week, actually, we had a player recommended who was at the MLS Combine. And coach said, hey, do you know anything? I said, oh, yeah, let me look at my notes. I was there. And so I was able to look back. First half he was playing as a winger. Second half he played as a right back, and I had notes on him. So it's part of the process, and it's good to have kind of that network and those player pools to fall back on when it comes to building up our team.
Is that something as a coach that you really enjoy getting out and doing, or do you try to treat it more as just part of the job?
I enjoy it. Not very often do we actually get to go watch a player play live who we want to bring in. Our budget doesn't really allow that at our level of football. So anytime we can go watch a player play live is fantastic. I mean, if you watch a match, the lens of the camera is always going to be screening towards the ball. So maybe you can't see some body shape or positioning or even body language of a player, but when you're watching a match live, you can really focus on that player and get a much better grasp of what they're about. So I enjoy it. I wish we could do it more, but when we can do it, we take full advantage of it.
Rewinding a bit now towards last season, where it was a very successful season, of course, for AFC. Is there a game that you have in mind that is something that is sort of a defining game for this season in terms of last year's team?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to talk about negatives, but, regional championship, I think, was unfortunately a defining game for us where, I think all the culmination of the build up to that match was, pointed in the direction that, hey, we're hosting, we can get a result in this final game and, push on to the national semifinals, which was our objective and kind of our goal as a club, and it didn't happen. So I think, a lot of times you look back on the positives and hopefully our fans do and our supporters do and our owners look back at all the positives. But, as a staff and, the leader of the men's team, I look back and I say, okay, what can we learn from that? That was definitely a defining game for, in a negative aspect. So how do we make sure that doesn't happen again? How do we get through that game next year? How do we position ourselves to be in the hunt, but to finally make that step in our club? So maybe you're looking for a positive, but that's the defining game for me.
Sometimes football is about the negatives, but it's all about how you respond to those. Do you have a favorite road trip?
Favorite road trip?
This can be particular memory or just a yearly road trip.
Yeah,
Some are closer than others, obviously.
The last 2 years, I think we've been very fortunate to head out to Milwaukee for that opening weekend in May. Our club's been supportive of us making an overnight trip, so we'd go out the day before. We would train on the Friday, stay the night, have a nice dinner, walk through, team talk, et cetera, the day of the match, play the match, and then come home. I think that was a really cool way to kick off the past two campaigns, because if you can get one of those road trips in early where it's an overnight trip and the guys can be around one another, you start to build some of those relationships. You start to see how different players interact with one another and what type of maybe social groups are starting to separate themselves. It's really intriguing, and I don't think we're going to have that this year, obviously, with the Milwaukee not being in our division,
right?
And travel being a little bit more local. But I think that's been the last 2 years. I couldn't say one year was different or better than the other, but I think both of those trips were a great way to start off our seasons and, held a lot of value in building the team up.
Do you like the more local travel that the division is shaping out to be, or is it fun to take those road trips?
I think it's fun if you have one or two of those trips. Just thinking about the players, some teams at our level may have a hard time getting players to travel, because they might be slammed in, small minivans or 12-passenger vans or whatever, but we're fortunate that we've been able to take those trips in style, and I think the players look forward to that. So to not have one or two of those, I think, is maybe a little bit disappointing, but again, we don't control it. So look at the bright side now of a lot of local matches. It's less travel, which is less stress on the players, hopefully quicker recovery times and regeneration times. We can get guys home, they can sleep in their own bed. And then from a fan perspective, you look at our supporters being able to get to matches. I was talking to one of our supporters last night, actually at a Super Bowl party, and he said, hey, now with Milwaukee out of the division, I think I'm going to be able to get to every game this year. I was like, that's awesome. That's what you want to hear, So cool. Look at the bright side. I think there's a lot of positives.
Talking about games looking ahead, AFC is back in the U.S. Open. Is that a fixture that you have circled at all? Is it just a normal fixture, or does it hold any significance to you at all?
No, it definitely holds a lot of significance. There's no need to beat around the bush. Some clubs maybe at our level, don't hold as much significance because I know there's some politicking, between our league and U.S. Soccer at the moment, and clubs at our level are almost set up to not have success in the Open Cup. When you look at the FA Cup, for instance, in the UK, every football team in the UK is on the same calendar, same cycle. So
Right.
teams are starting in August, and so for instance, when the EPL teams come into the FA Cup, if they're playing against a lower level team, they've had just as long to be with one another as a group as the Premier League club has. Now maybe their preseason was 2 or 3 weeks longer or whatever, but you're comparing apples to apples, right?
Yeah.
Now when you look at our level, so we step into the Open Cup, if we have to play against a pro team in that first round or second round, I mean, they've been together since, let's say, February timeframe or January, maybe even earlier, and we'll have less than maybe a week with our players that we have in to prepare for that Open Cup match. So from that standpoint, we kind of understand where we are in the pecking order, that we're kind of set up to fail. But that being said, I think it's a prime stage, a prime opportunity for us to make our mark as a club. When you can step in and play against a higher level team and get a result, I think that resonates throughout our fan base, throughout our community, and specifically throughout the football world. So when we're taking our team building process this year and we're initiating it, we're actually looking at some ways that we might be able to build our group up differently than in years past to be ready for that Open Cup match in early May, knowing that it's a game we haven't been able to get to the past 2 years. I thought we were pretty competitive with the Michigan Bucks 2 years ago. We lose 1-0. Last year got played off the park, by Ocean City. So this year we're saying, all right, what can we do differently? What can we do better to try to get through that game?
Very exciting. In terms of the preseason, it is still a bit hard because you don't know who your full squad is. You don't know other sides' full squads. But how early do you start making predictions for the season? Like, this is what we want to achieve. Is that something that you come up with right away, or do you have to wait for the team to form?
I don't think that's something that we as a staff or myself even write on the whiteboard or the chalkboard anymore. I think if you'd ask any of our owners all the way down to interns, they'd say AFC is about winning the division, about making the playoffs, and about pushing on in the playoffs. I think that's the expectation. That's the bar that we have as a club. So there isn't really a moment that you think through that stuff. It's just all off season. That's the expectation. That's the goal. We start preseason. That's the expectation. That's the goal. Mid-season, same thing. It's just, I think that's where we are as an organization, which has taken us time to get that kind of belief and that mentality. But that's definitely what we want to continue to cultivate.
That's very important. The AFC has been so successful in terms of that. In terms of last year, you talked a bit about hosting the playoffs. Obviously, as we discussed a bit, it wasn't the finest end result. But what was that like for AFC? And do you foresee that happening again, hopefully, if you are so lucky to be able to get to that point again?
It was a special moment, I think. I think everybody was a little bit salty the year before when we should have hosted the playoffs and we weren't able to. So to be able to win that bid or vote or whatever type of monkey trick the region uses to figure out who hosts, for us to be able to have that this past year was definitely neat for our organization. And I think when you look at a community support standpoint as well, it was pretty massive. I could share a number of stories of people who came out to those games last year for the playoffs that had never been out to a match before, but were a business supporter of the club or a sponsor or a friend of an owner, or whatever the case is. I think it was a really cool time for us to show our presence, in the league and in the region, but also here in Ann Arbor. So hopefully, a lot of stars have to align to be able to host. Obviously, you got to get results on the field. Ownership group has to be able to put together a community package, that attracts different clubs to come into the city of Ann Arbor for the event. So I'm not naive to think that we're going to be able to host again, because when you look at, whatever the last 4 or 5 years, it's been someplace different every year. But hopefully we can position ourselves to be able to host. I think it'd be pretty special.
Just veering back a bit towards on-field goals. In terms of training, what sort of training do you guys go into in terms of, like you mentioned, you may have to play 2 or 3 games in a week. Some you may just have one. What sort of training differentiates yourself and the club from other clubs at this level?
We essentially have 2 cycles that we look at. You're talking about on the field preparation, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we have 2 different cycles that we look at for our on field preparation. It's all the cycle evolves around whether or not we have to play 1 match in a week or 2 matches in a week, and then what type of recovery time we have between those games. So in May, when we have an Open Cup game, we'll play an MPSL match on a weekend. Let's call it a Saturday. We'll play an Open Cup match on the Wednesday, and then we'll have to play another league match the following weekend. So, the training resume is going to be built up to embrace, a heavy load day, which will physically get the players hopefully in a position where they can be ready for 90 minutes. There'll be a lighter session. There'll also be a regeneration session the day after the match. The players will need an off day at some point during there as well. And then you have to look at 1 or 2 sessions depending on when exactly those days fall on the weekend of preparing for the opponent. So we have a cycle that if we have 4 sessions during a week to prepare for 1 match on a weekend, we have a way that we go about our business. If we have 3 sessions to prepare for 2 matches on the weekend, we have a schedule. And then if we have a midweek game, we have a different schedule. So, and it can change throughout the season. Like last year, obviously we had our guys in Titan GPS sensor, so we could look at the accumulation of their workload throughout the season and know whether or not a player might need a day's rest. So we're looking at some sports science numbers as well to go along with our framework that we typically work in. And then the other piece of it is a player rotation. We know that players can't go 90 minutes plus 3-4 games in a tight window of time. And even speaking to college coaches who have players coming into us, they're very concerned about us managing their players' bodies to make sure that they return healthy to their college program in the fall. So, we take that into mind as well. We want to make sure that we're looking out for the players' bodies because at the end of the day, if players are being rested at the right time, they're going to be able to maintain their peak performance as well as stay healthy. So there's a lot of variables involved in that.
Yes. Do you find it difficult to manage these sorts of variables, like where you may have a couple players who are current collegiate athletes and others who are pros trying to stride on to get to the professional level again? Is that something difficult to manage for you?
It can be. I think the important piece is having upfront conversations with players before they come into us. Because we have had it in the past where maybe we have a college player come in who's kind of a big-time guy with his program, and he might only want to train a couple days a week or take a session off, and they're not buying into what we're about. And I think that negatively resonates throughout the culture of our team, and it really affects our performance and what we're trying to achieve. So we're as upfront as possible with players so they fully understand that, hey, we train daily. This is how we go about our business. This is the expectation if you're with us. It's not like you're not taking days off here, there, and whenever you want. That's not the mentality that's helped us be successful as an organization. And now that we've started to have those conversations over the past couple seasons, we really haven't had to deal with that as much.
Last question for you. In terms of a time frame for the club right now, as we talked about a little bit earlier, we're still a fair bit away from preseason, but it's right around the corner. What's up next for you in terms of preparation for the season?
Obviously, we have to continue to round out the roster. We're maybe at 17, 18 players now that we have confirmed that we feel really good about. We still have some key positions that we need to recruit and sign. So that's definitely on the short list of things we need to accomplish over the next couple weeks here. And then it's about laying out our preseason training dates, where we're going to be, what time. And then the final piece is putting, kind of those lesson plans in place of what those sessions each look like. And then we also have to finalize our preseason match schedule as well. We've got some stuff lined up, but we have to kind of finalize the logistics. Hopefully we can get 3 friendly matches in during the month of April to prepare us for our first league match first weekend in May. So, each day now things are picking up a bit, and before you know it, we'll be out there in April and hopefully put on a good product to represent the community again this year.
Exciting and busy times for you here. Eric, thank you again for joining me.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Appreciate you having me on, man. Absolutely. What's this called again?
Welcome to Tree Town.
Welcome to Tree Town.
Welcome back to Welcome to Tree Town. I am with Bilal Saeed, the second guest of this inaugural episode, AFC chairman, as you know. There is a bit of a disclaimer Liverpool and West Ham are playing right now. They are literally walking back onto the pitch for the second half. So if Bilal starts screaming, West Ham scored, and I will be devastated. But that's okay. Bilal, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, I think it's pretty fitting to be doing this during the second half of a game where both of our teams are playing.
Invested in. Yes. Well, first and foremost, talking about AFC, no one's more qualified, I'd say, to talk about the 5 years of AFC. What has changed than you here on this podcast? Can you take me through the journey a little bit of what it's been like from year 1 to year 5, the preparation for year 5?
Sure. Yeah, I feel like I have a lot of official and unofficial roles for the club, and club historian or documentarian has just become one of my roles, and it's been one of the funnest ones, to be honest with you, because at any given time someone might ask me, hey, how many goals did this person score? What happened in this game? And I actually know pretty much to a T what happened when. And so sharing that history with some of the new fans is exciting, and educating, the community about things that they might not be familiar with is always cool. But just to have a history now and to be able to reference it is pretty exciting. But there was such a big learning curve in the first couple years for, so many different things that heading into year 5, it's more about planning, strategic planning, and positioning ourselves more into the vision and plan that we saw. So making small adjustments and things like that. But as you know, the big thing that we've got added for this year is we're adding a women's side. And so that's been a little bit of an adjustment for us in terms of making sure our resources are allocated properly, and that we have the correct staffing in place. But it's pretty exciting.
That's very exciting. It's a time of lots of different new things, new women's side, and as we were talking a bit before the podcast, there's a new home for the Mighty Oak this season.
Yeah.
Where is it?
Yeah, so we're really excited to officially announce Concordia University Ann Arbor as our home facility, not just for 2019, but beyond. We were able to come to a long-term agreement with them that'll secure that as our home facility. And, over the last couple of years, bouncing around and being forced to kind of look for a new home has created a lot of challenges for us, not only in our marketing and messaging to the community, but just expectations for our fans and whatnot. So we've trained at Concordia in the past, so we have a relationship with the athletic department there. Their athletic director, Lonnie, and his team, and Kyle, they're great people to work with. And so we really just opened up a conversation led by Rishi Narayan, who's a board member of ours. He kind of spearheaded this project for us, and we were able to work out a pretty good deal with them, and we're really looking forward to calling Concordia our home venue for years to come.
There have been a handful of different home venues in the past couple of years now. Is it something that relieves stress for you that there's finally a long-term home for the Mighty Oak?
Yeah.
I figured that'd be your answer.
Like last year, one of the biggest challenges, last year we played, I believe, at 3 or 4 different home venues in one season.
Yes.
And that was just, I always explain to people we're a pop-up event, so not when you don't have your permanent home facility as your own. It's really challenging to, control certain things. So moving around was just not good for us, and we're really excited about this, being in a permanent location and to have such a great partner in Concordia.
There is not only an on-field home, but there is an off-the-field home as well, which is where we are recording.
Yeah.
What exactly is the Treehouse?
So, welcome to the Treehouse, AFC Ann Arbor's Treehouse. In December, during the owners' meeting at the NPSL annual general meeting, I had the chance to visit Minneapolis City's club shop, and it was just a really cool vibe in there. Their staff and front office are just great people, and they were so welcoming to Jamie and myself, and I just really loved the vibe that they had going on there. And it's something that I've been looking to do for a while, was find a storefront where we could sell our merch and tickets to our fans. And once I visited Minneapolis, I was really inspired to kind of take that leap, and just started looking for a space more seriously. And because space is so limited and tough to find in Ann Arbor, it just took me a little bit longer to find the right situation. And we were excited to be able to find that opportunity. And the Treehouse will officially open March 1st, and we'll be celebrating the grand opening that day. And fans will be able to buy their shirts and all the gear and merch and even tickets here at the Treehouse. So we're pretty excited about that.
Looking, as we mentioned, there's a long-term vision, obviously, towards the club. And a lot of what we, at least personally, have discussed is things to be excited about in the past. But what is there in the future? We know there's a long-term home. There's this off-the-field home. Is there anything else that excites you in terms of the product going forward?
Yeah, I mean, the product going forward, one of the best things is that, we've always wanted to present ourselves as a very serious sporting side that creates a very high-level training environment and the opportunity for players to push on. And saying that and doing that is two different things. So to be able to have a few years under our belt to show, new prospective players that, hey, yes, we have helped players push on, whether it be Okumu or Novotny or, guys like Lars Eckenrode from the past. We now have a track record of players pushing on to the USL and beyond. And I think that really helps with, setting a precedent in a brand and a style for what your club is. And so to be able to continue that and build off that, I'm excited for the future. And to kind of lay that same foundation for the women's side is something that we're looking to do. So a lot of it is growing and building rather than, at the beginning, it's a lot of learning. And so we're just really excited to continue kind of growing off the foundation that we laid in the first couple of years and seeing where that takes us.
Your official title with the club is chairman, but I think anyone who knows you do a lot more than just be the chairman. Can you take us through some of the things that your job entails with AFC?
Sure, yeah. Chairman's just a fancy title it's my job to help organize everyone and to make sure that everybody's communicating with one another, but really it's a team effort. Jamie Amrine, our club founder, is pretty involved, whether it be scheduling or some of the back-end league stuff. Rishi Narayan, another board member, is heavily involved, whether it be on the merch side or helping negotiating partnerships like the one he did with Concordia. So we've got an active board that supports our efforts and whatnot, but because of my role in certain areas, whether it be sponsorship or marketing or connecting the business and sporting side, I just have to wear a lot of different hats, and my background allows me to do that. So I find that very gratifying, and I don't know, I always kind of explain to people, like, I'll do anything for the club. I think people know that that's true in every sense, whether it be cleaning stands or doing the laundry or arranging a meal or, checking in on the players at the houses. It's something I take a great, sense of pride in, that responsibility to have this role for the club. And more than anything, whether it's a staff member, a supporter, a player, or one of our coaches, I want everybody to get the most out of the opportunity with the club and to make sure that they feel a part of it and that they're able to contribute and make a difference and a change. And I think, so really I'm more of a facilitator because I feel like I have all kinds of help and support from all of the different people like yourself who step up and help kind of take some of the workload off my hands. So, yeah, man, I love it. I don't know why I have such a formal title, but, at the end of the day, I just love this club so much, and I'm willing to do pretty much anything for it.
Do you have a favorite metaphorical hat that you wear?
I think the funniest thing has just been, or maybe ironic or whatever, is that oftentimes I've had to jump in and help with the team laundry after games and stuff. So, and once upon a time, it was like, I'm switching loads while I'm posting a post-match recap and, trying to get content from the team and also coordinating things for the players. And so, my absolute favorite role for the team is, I guess, being GM of the men's side. The relationships I've been able to form with the players and the staff, coaching staff over the last few years has just been phenomenal. The things I've learned from Eric and Rod and Boise and Shooky it's just been amazing to be to be around that type of environment. And yeah, I love being the guy that can help our players put out fires or solve issues or whatever it is. I'm there for them, and I think they know that, and I don't mind that role.
I spoke about this with Eric a little bit, but road trips are obviously a big thing, especially in lower league football life. Do you have a favorite road trip that you take with the club?
It used to be a little bit, I don't think I have a favorite road trip.
No?
I just love being in season, like everybody's talking about some of the new things like Founders Cup and things like that. And, is that something you guys would consider? My answer is always, we want to play more games. We want to be doing this longer. We want to do this all year long if we could. We love the game. We love everything about it. So whatever we can do to be involved more heavily around the game, we would take that opportunity. But it's got to make sense, and that's where we're at is, just got to make the most of the opportunity and make the most of the short season that it is, right? It comes and goes so quickly. So
yeah. Is there anything in particular that you like about the more self-contained summer season?
Yeah, no, I mean, I love it. It's great. It works. Like the hard part is most of the time we're all juggling multiple jobs or responsibilities, and so it's just hard to commit a lot of time and resources. But like I said, it's something that we all care a great deal about, and it's not just at the beginning it might have been just the men's team, but for us it's more about the community work and the impact we're making locally and how that trickles down into more people playing soccer longer, seeing an opportunity that might go beyond your youth team and travel team. So I think it's just a matter of building off what we've laid down in the foundation in the early years. And the good thing about the summer schedule is that it allows us to utilize college players, and I think going away from that would be a big change for a lot of people, but obviously some people are starting to do that.
In terms of looking ahead towards this upcoming season, I know that Eric mentioned that within the club there is a set of sort of, we want to win the division, we want to do these sorts of things. Is it the same with you, even though you may not be on coach directly coaching these players? Do you have that sort of same mentality?
100%. Our goals are as an organization. So it's our goals are very clear up front going into the season, what we want to accomplish on the field and off. And so we're very, very upfront with the players about it. We're here to accomplish something. Here's what we're here to do. And so 110%, Eric and I are on the same page in terms of what we're trying to accomplish, what our goals are. And we go out there every season to try and improve off the season before, which is challenging. But at this point, I think it's a priority to defend the Great Lakes Championship for a third year, and then see if we can continue to advance to the Midwest Region Final and maybe secure our first championship there.
Last question for you. In terms of last season, do you have a favorite memory that stands out for you?
It's tough to always pick any favorite memory. I think the weirdest feeling I've ever had was having a favorite memory from a game we lost. But I think anyone who was there who remembers being down 3-2 in the Midwest Region Final and just feeling like we were owed that equalizer. It was just so unfair how many times we came so close to scoring. But as an owner, it's a very tough thing to set up a trophy presentation at your home facility that you now have to hand off to someone else.
Yes.
So in that moment that we were a few minutes into stoppage time in the Midwest Region Final, and I was preparing to begin the trophy presentation with Duluth. We had a corner kick, and AZ scored off that piece, and I will never forget that moment. I mean, everything about it, it was one of those moments where you felt like it was frozen in time, but also that it was such a blur and went by so fast. And, so many fans and supporters have told me that moment was them, falling in love with the club all over again, or that was one of their favorite memories. And so, even though that result for that match didn't go our way, there's no way I can ever forget that goal from AZ.
Absolutely. It's a very memorable goal, even with the end result. But thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting me do this primarily. That's a big thing, too.
Yeah.
Make sure you follow the club at AFC Ann Arbor on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at RMAB_Ryan. Follow you, Bilal Saeed, at B Saeed.
Yep.
And follow Eric Rudland on Twitter, too. Eric Rudland.
Yep. And feel free to, throw some hate at Ryan's Twitter. And after Liverpool blows this game, I'm sure I'll be throwing some tweets out there about the Hammers. So
I really hope not.
Hey, man, 1-1. If this result holds and it's 1-1, you might have to block me for a little bit, so could get out of control.
James Milner is playing right back. Adam Lallana is at center mid right now. If they don't get a result, I will happily make excuses for this performance.
Hey, you got excuses. We got excuses. Arnautovic is out.
He is.
I got excuses for days, so we can match up there. But just want to say thanks for you taking this on, man. It's been a great addition having you to added to the team, and we're thrilled about Welcome to the Tree Town and see where it goes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We will see you guys next week. Take care.